The night was supposed to be joyful. BTS had just finished one of their most emotional live broadcasts. Laughter, warmth, and nostalgia filled the air. But then the atmosphere shifted. Taehyung's smile began to fade. His voice trembled, and for the first time in a long while, fans saw tears streaming down his face. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was deeper, a mix of memories, longing, and the silent weight of everything he had been holding in. And standing quietly in the corner, watching every second of it, was Jungkook. Jungkook had always been the strong one, playful, full of energy, always trying to make others laugh. But as he watched Taehyung break down, something inside him cracked. His hands clenched, his jaw tightened. He tried to look away, but he couldn't. Every tear that fell from Taehyung's eyes hit Jungkook's heart like a storm. After the camera stopped rolling, there was silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any words could. Jungkook walked toward him slowly, without saying a thing. He didn't need to. Taehyung was still wiping his tears when Jungkook gently placed a hand on his shoulder. For a moment their eyes met, and that was all it took. No words. No explanations. Just understanding. Two souls bound by years of music, struggle, and shared pain, standing in the quiet aftermath of an emotional storm. And that was when it happened. The unthinkable Jungkook, who rarely lets his guard down, broke into tears too. Not the loud kind, but silent, trembling ones that carried years of bottled-up emotion. Taehyung froze, shocked, before pulling him into a hug, the kind that says, "You're not alone." In that moment there were no idols, no fans, no cameras. Just two brothers who had seen each other through everything: success, loneliness, and the silent pressure of a world that often forgets they're human too. That night, something changed, and though the fans would only see fragments of that emotion, those who looked closely could feel it, that behind Jungkook's calm smile was a storm of love, empathy, and unspoken pain. The world had gone to sleep, but Jungkook couldn't. Even after the lights dimmed and the laughter of the members faded down the hallway, his mind kept replaying the moment. Taehyung's trembling voice, the tears, the weight in his chest that refused to lift. He sat by the window of the hotel room, watching the city lights shimmer below. Doha's night sky was vast, calm, and almost too quiet. But inside, Jungkook felt anything but peace. His phone buzzed. A few messages from staff, from friends, even from fans. But he didn't open them. He didn't want to see words. Not tonight. He just wanted silence, a silence where he could breathe. And finally feel everything he had been hiding. He thought of Taehyung again. The way he smiled through his pain. The way he always tried to protect the others, even when his own heart was breaking. Jungkook had seen that too many times. The pressure, the expectations, the loneliness that comes after the cheers fade. He whispered to himself, almost inaudibly, "He doesn't deserve that kind of pain." A small sigh escaped him, half relief, half regret. Because deep down Jungkook knew he felt the same. He grabbed his journal, the one he carried everywhere but rarely used. On the first blank page he began to write. Not lyrics, not poetry, just thoughts. Raw, messy, unfiltered. Sometimes it's hard to be strong when everyone expects you to be unbreakable. But tonight I realized even strength needs to cry too. His handwriting was shaky, but his heart felt lighter with every word. He didn't know if he'd ever show this to anyone. Maybe it would just stay between him, the ink, and the night. Then, without thinking, he picked up his guitar. The soft sound of strings filled the empty room. Each chord carried fragments of what he couldn't say aloud: comfort, sadness, and a quiet kind of love. Hours passed, and somewhere between music and memory, he smiled faintly. Not because the pain was gone, but because he understood it now. That night, Jungkook didn't need to perform, didn't need to smile for cameras, didn't need to be perfect. He was just human, fragile, feeling, and real. And maybe that's what made the moment so powerful, because even idols cry. Even stars break, and sometimes, that's where their light truly begins to shine. Morning came softly. The sun filtered through the curtains of the hotel suite, painting streaks of gold across the floor. The world outside was already alive. Cars moving, people walking, the sound of the ocean faint in the distance. But inside, everything felt still. Jungkook woke before everyone else. He hadn't slept much. His eyes were swollen, not from exhaustion, but from the quiet tears he'd let fall hours earlier. The journal lay open beside him, A few words smudged by the edge of a tear he hadn't realized had landed on the page. He stretched, took a deep breath, and for a long moment, just stared out the window. Something felt different. Not broken, not heavy, just different. Like something inside him had shifted. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Hyung! Jungkook's voice was quiet, uncertain. When the door opened, Taehyung stood there, hair messy, hoodie too big, eyes still red. He looked tired but calmer. There was a faint smile on his face, the kind that said, "I'm okay now." Neither of them spoke for a few seconds. It wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. The kind of silence that comes when words aren't needed anymore. Finally, Taehyung broke the stillness. "You couldn't sleep either, right?" Jungkook shook his head with a soft laugh. "Not really." Taehyung looked at him, eyes gentle but full of understanding. "You shouldn't have cried, you know." "I'm fine now." Jungkook smiled faintly, though his voice trembled when he answered. "Yeah, but sometimes it's hard to watch someone you care about hurt and do nothing." For a moment, Taehyung just stood there, then stepped forward and pulled Jungkook into a quiet no words, no explanations. Just a heartbeat shared between two friends who had been through everything together. They stayed like that for a while, the city waking up around them, the world unaware of what was unfolding in that quiet hotel room. Later that day, when they appeared in public again, they smiled like always, bright, carefree, professional. But if you looked closely, if you watched the way Jungkook glanced at Taehyung a little longer, or how Taehyung's laughter carried a softer tone, you could feel something had changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet, invisible way that only true connections do. Their bond had deepened, not because of the music, not because of fame, but because they had seen each other at their most fragile, and chosen to stay. And though fans would never know the full story, some would sense it, in the way Jungkook's gaze softened on stage, or in how Taehyung's smile felt warmer than before. Sometimes, healing doesn't come with words, sometimes it begins in silence, and in the simple act of being there when it matters most. A few days later, the stage lights burned bright again. Another country, another show, but for Jungkook and Taehyung, something about this one felt heavier. The cheers were loud, the fans endless, and yet, in their eyes, there was a quiet intensity that few could see. When the music started, everything else faded. It was just them, the rhythm, the lights, and the unspoken emotion still lingering in their hearts. That night, they performed The Truth Untold. The song was already emotional, but this time it hit differently. Jungkook's voice carried a tremor, subtle yet unmistakable, the kind that comes when words are pulled straight from the soul. Taehyung sang next, his tone deep and raw, each note wrapped in vulnerability. For a brief second, as the spotlight shifted between them, their eyes no smile, no signal, just that silent understanding they'd always had. And in that moment, fans felt it, something real. Something far beyond choreography or rehearsed emotion. The crowd didn't know about the night in Doha. They didn't know about the tears, the sleepless silence, the hug that healed more than words could. But they felt it, in the way Jungkook's voice cracked slightly on the high note, and in the way Taehyung exhaled like he was letting go of something he'd carried too long. Behind the stage, staff whispered. "Did you feel that?" one asked quietly. It's like they were telling a story through that song. And maybe they were. After the show, Jungkook sat on the edge of the stage while the arena slowly emptied. Sweat glistened on his skin, his chest still rising with heavy breaths. Taehyung walked over, handing him a bottle of water. "You sang differently tonight," Taehyung said softly. Jungkook smiled, glancing down at the stage floor beneath his feet. "Maybe because it wasn't just a song anymore." Taehyung nodded. "Yeah. I felt it too." For a moment they sat together in silence. The same kind of silence that had once been filled with pain, now replaced by something else: peace, understanding, strength. The fans would never know the full story behind that performance. They would only see two idols giving everything on stage. But those who looked closely, those who truly listened, would feel the message hidden within every lyric. That behind the perfection, behind the fame and the lights, there are hearts that break, heal and love, just like everyone else. And that night, Jungkook and Taehyung didn't just perform. They healed together.